The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, and back again, rejoining the podcast is TG, Tyler Gerstein.
Here we are.
The resident, former coworker, but resident, Tennessean. Is that the way you say it? All right. Didn't know for sure. But also,
I'm still new. I don't really know what we're calling ourselves, but hey, Tennessean, Nashvilleian, either way.
Whatever works.
Yes, sir.
Not Memphisian, that we know that. So,
No.
With that being said, got to bring you on. Got to talk some hoops. NBA season kicks off this Wednesday night. Recording this on Monday, October 23rd, depending on when you hear it. And, I would love to open up the podcast with hey, Thunder talk. I'm wearing the Thunder hat. Let's go in on the Thunder. Let's go all get excited. But there's a guy who was formerly on the Thunder who has changed teams quite a bit. I think he wants to change teams here pretty soon again, if he could.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how do you feel about James Harden? What's your idea?
I mean, we're getting right into it. Listen, I was listening to my guy Stephen A. Smith on First Take. I know people hate Stephen. There's not really an in between. I personally like the guy. I think he's got some good takes. And he was saying something about James Harden that resonated with me, stuck with me, that I wanted to share on here. Listen, James, you hate Daryl Morey all you want. Daryl Morey did you wrong, whatever the case may be. He didn't give you the contract you thought you were going to get. Whatever the lies behind the scenes were told, that's fine. You can hate Daryl Morey. You forced your way out of Houston. You forced your way out of Brooklyn. You're not the same player you were, when you were in Houston. You can do those things in Houston. You were still dropping 45 on your head, averaging a triple-double, MVP running every year. Yeah. Did you lead the league in assists last year? Yes. Are you still a stud, all-star caliber player? Absolutely. Are you the James Harden we know and love and remember? No. That being said, you can hate Daryl Morey all you want. But what the hell did Joel Embiid do to you? What about Tobias Harris? What about Tyrese Maxey? What about your guy who you pried away from the Miami Heat, PJ Tucker? What about your boy Pat Bev? What about all these guys that the Sixers built the roster around you and Joel? What did they do to you? You can hate Daryl. You don't have to have a relationship with the front office. A lot of players in front offices don't have a relationship. It's a business, James. It's a business. They got to give Joel the max. They got to give Tyrese the max. They're almost out from under a bad Tobias contract. So you didn't get the money you thought you deserved. You're getting $35 million, James, to play in the NBA. You're doing just fine. I want to say your career earnings are close to $300 million. You're not hurting for an extra $5-10 million. You're not. So what about those guys, Cal? You're going to leave them in the dust? Because if you do trade James, the Clippers, you know what? They say, fine, we'll throw in Terrence Mann and 2 firsts. I don't know what the package is. I don't know what it looks like. All I know is if that is what it was, if that's the package the Sixers are looking to get, you are not coming out of the East. You're not a top 3 team in the East. You're not a top 4 team in the East. Terrence Mann for James Harden significantly decreases your potential at beating the Bucks, the Celtics, the Heat, any of these good teams in the East. So that's my take on it. It's annoying. It's aggravating. You know what? Daryl Morey may have lied to you, man, and I apologize for that. Daryl shouldn't have done that. But your teammates don't leave them to out to dry.
I think a lot about how the Thunder's former big 3, like the young guys, KD, Westbrook, and Harden, are going to go down in the history books. And to me, Westbrook, as a Thunder fan and a huge Westbrook truther, I hope he goes down for a guy who played an insane amount of games without really being injured. I hope that's kind of how he resurrects his legacy, more or less, from being stat padding and getting triple doubles. The triple doubles were awesome. That one season right after KD left, he wins MVP. In my mind, of course, I know I'm biased, rightfully so. Others disagree. Go for it. But it's hard for me to see past that just because, there was no one else on that team. There's few other guys on that team who started in the NBA playing any minutes on that team that started. I mean, We're talking like, okay, Paul George first year, he's not playing a lot of minutes, etc. I could keep going. But Harden and Westbrook, I think, are going to be compared always, going back and forth.
Absolutely.
KD's in another stratosphere. Offensively, everything, he's in a stratosphere. So he's number one. But Harden, how do you want to like rank yourself as a player? How do you want to be known going on your longevity? You won an MVP more recently than Westbrook. But I think right now, if you go 1 year of Harden for 35 mil or 1 year of Westbrook for 4, the Clippers, let's say you're the Clippers and you get to decide one or the other. Which one would you rather do? And I know it's going to be, it's Harden, like 6-man off the bench. He gets to play utility. He gets to rotate in with Paul George and Kawhi, etc. But like for the money, I mean, the Clippers can round out their team just way better. They can have Terrence Mann on the roster. They can keep the other guys going. So what does Harden really see himself? Because if he gets, my point is if he does really want this trade, isn't he making the Clippers worse by doing this trade?
No.
Okay.
I hear you. Yeah. I absolutely do. Because I think Russell Westbrook had an underappreciated season last year. He was scapegoated in LA. Was he the problem for their faults? No. Did they take off after trading him? Yes. Was he a huge piece for the Clippers down the stretch? Yes. That being said, James Harden is no bum right now. James Harden is still a guy that he did it last year. He dropped 45 on the Celtics in the playoffs. He can get a triple-double. He can dish out 12, 13 assists. Russell Westbrook, can he get the rebounds and assist numbers? Yes. Is he dropping? A good game for Russ right now is 15, 8, and 8. That's a good game for Russ. But I think that right now you can get 25, 10, and 10, 25, 10, and 7 from a James Harden. I don't think, I still putting James Harden in another stratosphere than Russell Westbrook right now. But to your point, I mean, I think he sees a better opportunity to win a championship with the Clippers right now. I do. I think he thinks, okay, if I can go to the Clippers, the only piece they're significantly giving up, one, he doesn't give a shit about the first round picks. I mean, he doesn't care. He's there for you. And if it's Terrence Mann, well, then, yeah. I mean, the Clippers are way better. That roster's still rounded out. You still got your Morris brother or your Marcus. You got Russ. You got Kawhi. You got PG. You have pieces still. And I think, he wants a new big three. He wants a new challenge. I think it really comes down to him wanting to get to LA for the later half of his career, being 33, 34 years old. I think he's from out there. He wants to get back to LA. But yeah, I mean, I think he sees a better opportunity to compete for a championship with the Clippers. And again, maybe it does come down to strictly his hatred for Daryl Morey, but maybe he's using that as an excuse. Maybe that's, I don't know. I do believe that he hates Daryl Morey, but I also know that they were boys in Houston. Daryl did right by him by sending him to Brooklyn, and now you're forcing your way out of your third team in 3 years. Like, maybe his people were like, dude, you can't just force your way out. We need a reason. All right, Daryl Morey lied to me. Is that, could that be crazy that he's just, making this up?
It could be a little crazy. I keep coming back to one main point here with the Clippers, though, is that, and let me adjust my question from just either Harden or Westbrook to, would you rather be the Clippers and have Batum, Covington, and Terrence Mann, or trade all three of those guys, regardless of the picks, for James Harden? Because that is one of the ways the trade is successful. I'm sure there's another way or two. But, for example, if you take Batum and Robert Covington out of that deal, you have to include Norman Powell or Morris to make it somewhat close. And then you got to throw in like a Bones Highland or Kenyon Martin Jr. or whatever. At that point, I'm not really talking about a bunch of real worth guys, but I'm just saying you salary-wise, Harden opted in.
Right.
Which, again, if you don't want to play for this team and Daryl Morey wronged you, don't hop in. Do not opt in. Do not hop back into the Sixers. If you say, hey, Joel Embiid and I don't get along well, I want to be the guy with the ball majority of the time. I want to go back to it's me versus everyone else. Screw it. Whatever. Like, he just doesn't like Joel Embiid. Doesn't like playing with a guy who was MVP on his team. Whatever, man. Then don't opt in. Like, and go make probably $36 million over, I should say, Harden, you're right. The Harden's not a bum. So probably go make like two year 80 mil. maybe something like that. You know, I mean, that would be, I think, the peak of what he could get, $40 million a year from some team, but he does lock down for 2, you know, maybe with, you know, basically no, you know, he doesn't have a trade exception. He can't demand a trade or whatever. Again, he has to play a certain amount of games each season for it to count. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get how he can be mad, basically.
I don't get it either. And I think, you know, I think there's a reason, you know, the Clippers could get this deal done. The Clippers could get this deal done if they wanted to get this deal done. I think they're only going to get this deal done, to your point, if they, not if they feel that they fleece the Sixers, not if they feel that they steal James Harden from the Sixers, but to your point, they're not going to deplete their depth for him. Now, other end of the token, does Ballmer, does Ty Lue, do they think that they've reached their potential ceiling with this roster? Things say no. Things point to them still believing that this is the roster that can compete for a championship. So, I'm torn on it. I think, again, if the Clippers wanted to get this deal done, it would be a done deal. The Sixers clearly want to get a deal done. Maybe, maybe not. James wants to get the deal done. But I don't know. It's a sticky situation that I hope plays out in Philly's favor. You know, I really do. I think back to even listen. I don't think he had the best relationship with Doc Rivers. I think that was a public knowledge that they didn't get along. Nick Nurse is a hell of a coach. And the Sixers don't have a bad roster at all. You know, they really don't. They got a young Tyrese. They got the MVP. Toby's no bum. They got PJ playing defense. They brought in Pat Bev. They got pieces, you know, and now you put a really good X's and O's coach. I just wish James would give it a chance, man. I do. I don't see it happening. You know, if he forces his way out and the Sixers can get the pieces they want to get, great. If not, you know what? Hold on to him and, you know, let him make a stink on the sideline.
All right, well, last James Harden question here to round it out. He played 58 games last season. How many games does he play, more or less games this season? Over under 58 for James Harden this season, regardless of which team he's on or what happens. Just kind of shot in the dark, how you feeling? Do you think he plays more than less than 58?
I'm going to go under.
Okay.
And I say that because, man, I don't know. What was he doing this offseason besides holding up Daryl Morey's a liar sign? Again, we don't know James's everyday schedule. We don't know. You know, maybe he was busting his ass in the gym. All I know is at this point in James's career, the hammy's been lingering. There's been injuries that have lingered him for the past couple of seasons. I would have loved for him to just put his head down, get in the best shape possible, and come in. Now, I'm not, obviously, would never wish an injury. I don't think that's the case. But I'm saying older players, more injury prone, maybe not having the type of offseason he needed to in the gym, coupled with the fact that I could see him sitting out the first 5-10 games of the season. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't. So I'm taking all those things into account. I'm going under 58.
All right. I agree with you on that standpoint. All right. Well, NBA season, like I said, starts up Wednesday night. We've got Nuggets Lakers.
No, Tuesday night. Tomorrow night. Starts
up tomorrow night. Got Nuggets Lakers.
Well, I mean, let me fact check you on that, but
if I'm wrong, I'm going to feel real bad about that one.
You're wrong. We got Lakers Nuggets tomorrow night, Suns Warriors tomorrow night.
Wow. All right. Well, very excited here.
Yep.
But with those, I kind of had a curveball question for you of who's coming out of the East and West. And add on a little sprinkle here of who improves their win percentage by 10 or wins by 10 games. Right. So we're going back this back-to-back years where we've got 82 games, not any COVID deal, anything where it's 70 or 71 whatsoever. But, you know, you got the Spurs with 22 wins last year and the Rockets with 22, tied for bottom in the West. And then, of course, the Pistons last year had the absolute worst record at 17 wins. And then they got the 5th draft pick. So I don't know if they're going to be jumping up too much. It's not like they got Wembanyama or even the top 3 with that worst record in the league by honestly a good margin. So
yeah.
I can ask you, we start with whichever one you want to, but East or West, who do you think improves 10 or more games this year? Or if you got a curveball, you want to tell me, hey, I think this team loses 10 or more games than they did last year too.
You know, I think, and again, the easy answer, you could say, you know, I think the Pacers are going to be really good. I think Tyrese is going to be good. They had a good year last year. I could see them being a top 5 team in the East. I think the Pacers have a lot of young studs. I'm going to go a little bit out of left here, and I'm going to say the Washington Wizards.
Ooh, okay.
I think Jordan Poole is going to lead. I think Jordan Poole is going to average 25 points per game this year. I think him and Kyle Kuzma alone, those two may put up 50. I think Denny Advia takes a step this year. I think I like what the Wizards, I like that they were able to acquire JP. I think JP was, again, he had his faults in Washington or in Golden State. Him and Draymond situation wasn't going to play out. Didn't have good playoff games, whatever the case may be. I think he's coming for revengeance this year. I think Washington, out of the Eastern Conference, wins 10 more games than they did last year.
Wow. All right. Well, I could not disagree more, but that's just because I think they're going to trade so many guys by the end of the season. I think it's going to be first 50 games or so. And then, all right, Tyus Jones, you know what? All of a sudden, the Suns need a guy, and they have some asset that the Wizards want. I don't know. The Suns seem like to trade every single possible asset they have. But with that being said, somebody will want something. I mean, the Bucks need a backup point guard or something to go behind Lillard in some, big spots or whatever.
And I'd love to say the Orlando Magic, but I feel like I've been on a Magic train for the past couple of years now. I think Paolo's going to be a stud. I really do. I think he could be in the running for most improved. Not that he had a bad year at all, but I think he's going to really come out and have a great second season. I don't know. I like Kuzma and Jordan Poole together. I think Washington wins 10 more games they did last year.
All right. Well, you know what? We're going to play a little Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because I'm going to let you be the optimist here. I'm going to be the pessimist. I think that the Raptors lose 10 games over this year. They had 41 wins last year. Looking at it, Fred VanVleet's not incredible, but he's been with the team quite a while. Yep. And Nick Nurse would be one of those coaches who I'd say he's worth 5 or more wins a season. Just by coaching the team, he's a 5-win improvement, 5-win difference. Yep. Right there, those are two huge differences. And the Raptors don't have a ton of guys. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Scotty Barnes making that third-year jump because he's going to score a lot more. Scotty Barnes may be an incredible playmaker, but I don't look to him as like, oh, he's going to go off this year for 25 a game. I just don't see it.
I don't either.
And I do think that the Bulls will also be a team that's worse, but I do think that, like what you're saying, Pacers, Wizards, Magic, maybe a little bit of a lot of the Pistons needs to help out. Both Cade Cunningham back full strength, you would figure this year, and the Pistons going for it more or less, with the draft next year being worse too. That all these teams who had worse records than the Raptors last year start jumping. They start jumping up, and then all of a sudden the Raptors are like, okay, we have Grady Dick and basically 2 different stretch D and 3 guys, 3-and-D guys that we want so much for that other teams are almost offended when they're asking when they ask. Well,
that's the thing too. To your point, why don't the Raptors see what we see? Why is Siakam still on the roster? Why is OG still on the roster? Why are they scared to tear it down? I get it. Maybe they think they can sneak in as an 8 seed, or but you know what? I don't know. I agree with you. You lost your coach. You lost your point guard. It's probably time for a rebuild in Toronto. You lost Kawhi a couple of years ago, obviously. You got your ring. You went all in. You got your ring. It's probably time to turn those players into some first-round picks. So I'm not sure what the GM's seeing that we're not.
Yeah, I know there's one team that I would love to see get Pascal Siakam, and it's definitely the Thunder. So I wonder what's going to happen here with this season. Well, transition over here to talk more about the West. Who do you think is going to win or lose 10 or more than they did last year?
You kind of alluded to it earlier. I think the Rockets made big jumps. I like Fred. Don't like Dylan Brooks. Like him as far as, helping your team. I think he's a really good defensively. They have the young pieces there. So I would go Rockets to make that jump. I think your team, the Thunder are going to be great. Chet coming back if he can stay healthy. Shea is going to be the MVP consideration. You got Lou Dort, who's going to lock you down. They have Giddey. They got pieces there in Thunder. I feel like that's an easy answer. I think we're over the point where we should be talking about the Thunder where, like, they shouldn't be. They're the Cinderella story anymore. I don't think they are. I think they have a good enough roster. I think, is it Sam Presti? Mm-hmm. Sam Presti hell of a job, not a quick rebuild. We still yet to be seen as far as the talent on paper and the amount of draft capital they got to at least probably go and add a stud next to SGA potentially still. I don't think the silver end of story is the Thunder anymore. I think they're going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to be good. So as far as a team that didn't have a good year last year, spent money this offseason, give me the Rockets to win 10 more games.
Gotcha. I want to say the Thunder are going to win 10 or more, but they won 40 last year. Their over and under from Vegas is 44.5 or 45.
Yeah.
And a half.
That's
a lot of wins. It's just a lot of wins to say, oh, they're going to win 50 just seems crazy, honestly, because last year, 2 teams in the West won 50 or more. And it was Grizzlies with 51 and the Nuggets with 53. Like the Thunder are going to be 3 games back from the Nuggets last year. I know that the Nuggets dropped them down the stretch, but it just doesn't seem possible.
Right.
I'm with you about the Rockets. I feel like they could definitely jump 10 games. Dillon Brooks seems like the guy to me where you hate playing against him and you hate when he's on your team because he always wants to run a little bit more. He always gets the coach a little bit riled up, but also he's that guy who you just kind of know when he's on your team. Oh, hang on a second. Like maybe at the end of the year, he's kind of the Jimmy Butler a-hole, or at least wants to be, where he's always having us run a lot more after practice than we should, do a lot more, but now we're going to thank him for it because we're all the way to the end. That Grizzlies team was not bad last year, and they won a lot of games without Ja playing anyways. So I think there's a lot to be said about Dillon Brooks is basically getting ejected 5 minutes into a preseason game.
Yeah, for the same crap he pulled on LeBron.
So I could have all this fire back in my face here within a week where he gets kicked out of another game here in the first week, and I could be just saying a bunch of BS. But I'm going to do the Dr. Jekyll and Hyde thing again. I'm going to say I think the Jazz lose 10.
Yeah.
More. I honestly, I think the Jazz last year gave a middle finger to everyone, and they just said, you think we're going to tank? Now we traded Gobert and Mitchell. And then they went out 137. They were 3 games behind the Thunder, who was everyone's Cinderella darling this offseason here, is going to win more games. Bill Simmons breakaway cutout videos all over YouTube and TikTok, Snapchat, whatever it may be, about the Thunder doing this, doing that. Listen, I think the Thunder could be incredibly good, but I think the Jazz is kind of under the radar of why are they good? Like, what's the point? I understand you want to get tickets in the door, you want to get butts in the seats, etc. But the Jazz got to look around.
Markman's a stud,
he is, and Kelly Olynyk's not bad, and several other guys that got on the roster not bad either.
Walker Kessler, a bucket, but I agree.
This to me would be if I'm the Jazz, how do I get something back for Kessler, or not Kessler, excuse me, keep him, but how do I get something back for Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk if at the end of the day we're kind of like, all right, you know what? We got to improve our draft stock. We got to at least get a top 5 pick next year and just kind of do like a semi-Golden State thing where that season that Curry was hurt and the Warriors, of course, got James Wiseman with the number 2 overall pick, which I'm sure they would redo if they could do it again, but kind of be like the Jazz and just go, you know what? We know the draft this next year might be hit or miss completely, but if we just get rid of a couple guys this season, get some draft capital back, the next 3 years could be really, really on the up and up. I just taken 1 year kind of, all right, we're going to lose. Tank a season, all of a sudden, you're at 27 wins, and I'm just really just rambling here. But at the end of the day, 27 wins, you build it back up, you get a high draft pick, and all of a sudden you're right back in it just next year with maybe close to 40 wins after this season. So,
yeah, and I'm going opposite end of the spectrum. A team that really overachieved last year. That I think they make the playoffs. They're not finishing in that 3rd spot that they did in the Western Conference. Give me the Sacramento Kings to lose 10 more games than they did last year.
Yeah.
I think they overachieved. Mike Brown, hell of a coach. De'Aaron Fox, hell of a player. I've never been a huge Sabonis guy. I know he's great. I do, but I think I'm not going to say they reached their potential. Maybe I'm totally out of left on this. I think they did. I think they overachieved a little bit last year. I don't see him finishing top 3 in the Western Conference, a loaded Western Conference. Do I think they make the playoffs? Yes. Do I think they're a competitive team? Absolutely. Do I think they're going back to the same old Sacramento Kings we know? No. But I don't have them, I wouldn't be shocked if they win, 10 or fewer games than they did win last year.
Yeah, would not shock me at all, especially when the end of the day, they had so many guys play just so many games. I mean, they had Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, Davion Mitchell, Trey Lyles all play 70 or more games last year. I mean, I went all the way down to their 8th guy in their rotation, and they had all those guys play 70 or more games last year. That's just uncommon. And then if they, of course, they have a couple other guys play 60 or more, which helps them out, but they're kind of in the later in the rotation. So I just don't think they get that injury luck again. I'm totally with you. I don't think they get that. Unfortunately, I mean, like maybe Matthew Dellavedova gets out for a couple more games here this year, but at the end of the day, Sabonis is going to make 19 or more points a game again and average that. Who knows? Harrison Barnes is going to average 15 or more this season as well. Who knows? But I just don't see him repeating it. Totally with you there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, and again, I think the West is, and we'll get into it, but I just think as we know, the West is loaded.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, well, now I want to hit the main 3 awards here, and maybe even get on to most valuable player and defensive player of the year as well too. But MVP, rookie of the year, coach of the year, back to back. What are you thinking?
MVP, that's tough. I wouldn't be shocked. I think Joel Embiid's going to put up ridiculous numbers. I do. Man, I'm going to go. I'm going Nikola Jokic, MVP. I think he's going to put up the same numbers he did. I think not that people are going to feel bad for him, but I think he's going to, as much as people think he probably should have won over Embiid last year. I got Jokic coming back, MVP, coach of the year. Give me my guy from the Lakers, Darvin Ham. Again, I think could have won it last year. Took the team to the Western Conference year 1. Hell of a roster in Los Angeles. Playing in front of sold-out crowds at Crypto. Roster's even better than they did last year. Give me Darvin Ham, coach of the year. What was the last one?
Rookie of the year, coach of the year, and MVP. So I think rookie of the year left.
Rookie of the year?
Yeah.
Give me Scoop. Give me Scoop.
Oh, all right.
Give me Scoop.
Give me the pitch here. What's the pitch on Scoop over the huge favorite in Wembanyama?
I think that's it. I think if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, can't bet because of the Tennessee Titans. But if I was a betting man, you know what the bettors say? Fade the public. Everybody and their mother is on Victor Wembanyama for good reason. He's a freak. 7'5", can shoot threes, can get to the rack, can dribble, can assist, can rebound, can do it all. I think Scoot is going to put up really big numbers. I think Portland made out freaking awesome with that Dame trade. You get DeAndre Ayton, you get Rob Williams, you get picks out the wazoo. You still got Jeremy Grant. You still got Anthony Simons. You got pieces. You move out from Nurkic, which you've been wanting to do. I think he's going to put up big numbers, and I don't think they're going to be empty stats. Whereas a lot of people, Paolo put up some good numbers last year, put up empty stats, wasn't a winning player. I think Scoot coming from the G League, coming from an NBA-ready system. I like Scoot, man. I think he's going to average over 20 points as a rookie. And I think Scoot's just a stud. I really do. And I think the Spurs are still going to be pretty bad. And I think that's going to affect Wemby. And Portland's probably going to be pretty bad too, but for whatever reason, I see him getting a couple more wins.
I like it a lot. I like to fade the public. I would personally, of course, be a huge homer and say Chet for that reason alone. As you should. I think Chet's going to be right there too. And I think it's going to be a huge help. But I also think SGA for MVP would kill that. Like, it's going to be one or the other. You're not going to have a guy win Rookie of the Year and MVP. And I like the SGA for MVP odds way better overall, just because Wembanyama is going to be the guy making all these highlights. Like, how come we kind of saw Zion for like 10, 20 games? It was a random stretch of Zion's career where it was just highlight after highlight playing on the NBA court. I think that's kind of what we're going to see with Wembanyama, except for it's going to be for like 50 games instead of a 20. And that's going to be how he wins Rookie of the Year. That's also how we're going to just learn a lot more about Wemby, because he's not on a lot of nationally televised games. So it's just not going to be a guy we see every day. And Scoot's going to actually kind of be hurt just because he's going to make a lot of flashy plays. But the Portland Trailblazers also won't be on national television, and Scoot's just not a freakish dude as in the same realm. No one's ever been in the same realm though as Wemby, besides maybe Wilt. Rookie of the Year, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I would say Chet from Fade in the Public. I say Wembanyama otherwise. Coach of the Year, I gotta say, I think this one is definitely teed up here for Mark Daigneault with the Thunder. I think that's where he wins it. I do think that at the end of the day, Thunder are going to make the playoffs and be top 6 seeds in the West, which is tough, real tough. But last year they were, I think, 9 or 10. This year I just pick them to be 6 or better. 6 may be where they're at, though. The West is stacked. I don't think they're going to be that much better. But I also could easily see there just being a huge roadblock in the West. And the Kings, the Suns, the Thunder, the Lakers, maybe with some health issues, who knows, all being right there. And then maybe the Grizzlies too, honestly, all right there kind of bunching together. Pelicans, maybe if Zion's healthy for a full season, who knows? But I think everyone going to be bunching there together. I could say Thunder being like 5th or 6th and just all be bunched up there in the West where like Nuggets run away with it. Maybe Lakers are right there too. I do love what the Lakers did this offseason. And then I got MVP, Anthony Davis.
Wow. So you got AD staying healthy all year because that's what it's going to take.
Right. That's the only way.
He's MVP caliber every year. He plays 35, 40 games. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah. For this past season, he played a little more than his usual, but 2 seasons before that, he played 1 season over 2 years, which is just, you can't do that and then think, oh yeah, this team's going to be great. And listen, LeBron James is doing something regardless of whatever stat you want to pull up, he's doing something at playing a certain amount of minutes, a certain amount of games. Of course, he has a scoring title, all that type of stuff now. So I don't think he's going for MVP. Like, I think last year there was a little bit of, wait, is LeBron going to win MVP? Because he was like going for that scoring title and he was going to pass Kareem. And there was a little bit of that narrative. And then all of a sudden it was like, all right, well, the Lakers, are they even going to be good? And then they got rid of Westbrook. And then they made some other trades that got them right where they were. And then they took the Nuggets, honestly, looking at 5 games, wasn't a huge deal. But you know what? They still advanced. Like, they still made the Western Conference playoffs. They still did something in the Western Conference playoffs, which is a lot for a team that, I think 25 games in the season, most people were saying this could be catastrophic for them with them not having their first round picks for the next couple of years. And they're able to turn it around. I think now with one more year of some of these guys, especially one more year of Austin Reeves, et cetera, we could all of a sudden be looking at, oh, okay, Anthony Davis is going to play a lot of games. Anthony Davis just turned 30. It's not like he's 35. He's not 25, but he's not old. No. And you're reminded that every time him and LeBron do a presser together and LeBron's talking about all his records, everything, how long he's been in the league, and AD always just looks at him like, man, I was in middle school when you broke into the league. I mean, he's a young bull. I agree. I love Anthony Davis. He's a stud every time he's out there. He's a walking bucket. He's a great defensive player. The only thing, and it's just been year after year, that concerns me is his injury history. That's why I think Jokic, my guy, he always stays healthy. He's always out there. If I was going away from Nicole as far as MVP goes, I really do like Devin Booker this year. I could see D-Book being MVP. Only thing that concerns me with that, KD, Brad Beal, they're going to be taking a lot of those shots from him, a lot of that spotlight. Jokic he's the guy. He is the guy in Denver. Obviously, you got Jamal Murray, you got MPJ, you got Aaron Gordon, you got a great team. He is the far and away best player on that team, whereas, Devin Booker might not even be the best player on his team. How can he be the most valuable player in the league? But I do think Devin Booker is going to have an absolute career year, and I think the Suns are going to be a team to be reckoned with, obviously. Well, so is that your answer for the last question I got here on the podcast, which is just much more of an open-ended one, as far as who's going to be most valuable to their team, not necessarily going to win MVP, because only certain guys are eligible for that award. Really, like, I want to put SGA as MVP, but he'd have to have a Westbrook-like season to be 6th in the West and win MVP. It just isn't a deal. Like, when I look down at it, I can do however many podcasts and get all fired up about the Thunder, but just for SGA to win MVP, the Thunder have to be 4th or better in the West. That's just kind of what has to happen besides a random Westbrook season where he does something that hadn't been done before, and now it feels like a very different stat than it was before. I'll say it that way. So who's kind of your guy you think of when I'm putting this together here? Is like, if this guy wasn't on this team, they could be 7 wins, or they could be 10 wins lower than they should with this guy basically just on this team. But not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a guy who's like, in one of the top 4 teams in either conference.
I mean, I think that you could easily go to the MVP last year, Joel Embiid.
Okay, yeah.
I think if Embiid's not on the Sixers, if he asks for a trade, whatever the case may be, he gets hurt, he's out for a substantial part, that's a lottery team. I really do not think Tobias Harris, good player. Tyrese Maxey, good player. If James Harden isn't there, and this is all hypothetical, if James Harden isn't there and Joel Embiid misses a significant amount of time, Sixers aren't making the playoffs. Like that, he is hands down the most valuable person to his team, because without him, they're lottery. I truly think that. I think he is, an injury to Joel Embiid, James Harden not being there, maybe even James Harden being there, catastrophic.
You got a guy out of the East too, or excuse me, out of the West.
Yeah,
So I kind of agree with Embiid, but I also just think that roster comparatively to the Spurs roster, if they're missing Wemby, right? Like that, it seems kind of crazy.
Well,
but
I'll give you an easy one. I think the Mavs roster without Luka. If Luka's not on that Mavs team, yeah, they got Kyrie, but Kyrie ain't doing it by himself. I would say that Mavs team without Luka would be in some serious trouble. We've seen what happens with the Pelicans without Zion. With Zion, they're a different team. A healthy Zion, we're going to see what it's like. Grizzlies, no Ja. You could make the case for Ja. He's already missing 25 games. We'll see where they stack up after those 25 games. But if I had to pick one player out of the West, most valuable their team, Luka Doncic for sure. Without Luka, Mavs aren't making the playoffs either.
All right, well, I'm going to start in the East for mine here, but I think I'm going to throw out a bit of an oddball here, and that's the Pacers. I think without Tyrese Halliburton,
I like that.
They're not really anything. There are a bunch of guys who I've heard in different trade rooms and arguments for years, and that's Miles Turner and TJ McConnell. But if I'm looking at this roster, okay, if they don't have Halliburton, then all of a sudden, okay, Chris Duarte, I mean, there's some guys. There's some guys. Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, definitely good players. Something to build on there for that franchise. But it's just not gonna be the same. Without Halliburton, they are just a show of themselves. Halliburton is one of the youngest guys on the roster, not the absolute youngest, but one of them. And if he misses 40 games, I think Miles Turner has to be kind of getting MVP nods or something, or most improved player nods. And the same roster as Jalen Smith, who's in his second year in the NBA, or he's going into his third, I should say. And he's drafted 10th by the Suns. And now he's gotten DFA'd, released, and he's coming back to do this too. So I gotta say, I think it's the Pacers out of the East. And out of the West is tough because I could say Wemby. I kind of already did.
Yeah,
that's too much of an easy one though. And we haven't seen him.
I just don't think they're going to be. I don't think the Spurs are going to be that good this year with Wemby, and I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I love Popovich. I like Vassell. I like Keldon Johnson. They have some pieces, but I still think I still don't know if Wemby year one is going to propel them to an 8 seed or a 7 seed or a 6 seed. So that's why I only struggle to say Wemby, just because a team like Dallas with Kyrie and Luka, you're expected to be in the mix. But I think you take Luka away from that team, you got issues.
I totally got you there. I'm going to switch up a little bit here for the West. I'm going to say if Anthony Edwards isn't on the Timberwolves, they're bad, really bad. I think he's like the heart and soul of that team. Yep. And so I think that's just a lot of value. It's hard to quantify. It's interesting now. I've just clicked on 2 different rosters, both with Matt Ryan playing for the team. Of course, because he played for the Lakers for
he
10
did.
games and then somehow got over to the Timberwolves, or as they used to call them, the Timber Pups for a while. But really, the rest of this team here, like they've got some guys that are clearly heard of guys.
Right.
But Cat has not shown to be anything but a guy who really loves shooting threes at 7 feet tall. And then the rest of the team, they're good, but Shaden McDaniels can all of a sudden basically average, more than 12 a game, and Rudy Gobert going to average more than 14 a game. I just don't see it, especially if Anthony Edwards doesn't end up playing. He led the team in points last year at 24.5. So I don't really know what they're doing, what their game plan is. If Edwards goes down with an injury, of course, no one wishes for that. But I think he's the guy where I go, okay, you know what? If he misses any time whatsoever, they're really bad. Like they're all of a sudden just absolutely out of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just a bizarre team.
But I think this is also they're like they have to, if they're not good this year, if they don't win a playoff round or 2 this year, Cat's gone, Rudy's gone for whatever you can get for them. I mean, you gotta start a rebuild there because this is kind of that make or break year. You got an old Mike Conley. I mean,
yeah. Toy with you. Did you see that Cat's come out and said, you know what? Tom Thibodeau and I have patched things up. He's kind of winking over at the Knicks. Knicks are kind of winking back a little bit at him. Maybe there's a midseason trade this year.
Could be. I think the Knicks, they'll probably still losing a little bit of sleep over not getting Donovan. Still losing a little bit sleep over, not landing a star. And to that point too, could Joel Embiid be in the mix for that?
Ooh.
Could, if James gets traded, I would not be shocked if Joel Embiid asked for a trade out of Philadelphia. I think he loves Philly. I think he loves the Sixers. I think he loves what the team's tried to build around him. But he's an older player, not too old, but he's getting up there a bit in age. He's got injury history. It's his time's kind of now, and maybe that Knicks roster, with Joel Embiid's getting some good. That being said, I still think far and away the Eastern Conference is just top heavy with Celtics Bucks. I just think, and obviously, this isn't brain surgery over here. I just think those 2 rosters, I'm not sure if there's a trade out there right now for a said Knicks, for a said Heat, because they had it. They missed out on Dame, for a said Sixers that are going to be missing out on James if he doesn't decide to play. Like, I just think far and away, those are the 2 teams. Whereas you look at the Western Conference, yeah, the Nuggets are great. Lakers are great. You got the Suns, you got the Mavs that you can't blink at. You got the T-Wolves. You got teams that are, I think it's a little bit more even over there in the Western Conference.
I'm with you there for sure, because I don't think there's a lot of good teams of the East. I think we're kind of one of those years where it just flips back and forth. But I wouldn't be too surprised if the Miami Heat don't make their way into future podcasts we're recording here at all either. Just because they didn't miss out on Lillard doesn't mean to me that they missed out. Like, they're just kind of one of the, like, if I'm going to say the Pacers as a team on the podcast, like, I got to also throw out the Heat just to mention them, just as an honorable mention almost, because.
And blink at them. You got to give them the respect. They find a way. They could be, it doesn't matter if they're an 8 seed. Clearly, we've seen that, so can't blink at playoff Jimmy, Bam, Tyler Hero healthy. But that being said, you lost Gabe Vincent, who was huge for you in the playoffs. He's out in La La Land. They needed to do something this offseason. Pat Riley, absolute genius, basketball mind. Don't sleep on him and the Heat to do something. But I do think they should have landed Dame. They had him in their sights. And if it was really Tyler Hero that they didn't want to give up, I think he kind of had to do it. But it's all right. That's why I'm not.
They also gave up Miami Heat playoff legend Max Strus as well. And I gave up. They just didn't re-sign him. He went to the Cavs. Who knows what he'll do? Will he be able to redo what he was doing with the Heat? Or is he just one of those guys who's like a system player? Almost when it's one of those Patriots guys like J.C. Jackson. He goes and plays for another team. And it's like, oh, he's He's not the same guy because he's not on the Belichick defense. Yeah.
And then he refused to get on the field. I mean, players like that just drive me up a wall.
Right. It's just bizarre. All right. Well, very last question here for the podcast. What are your thoughts on the NBA uniforms as a whole? Would you just absolutely go back to the drawing board with any one team? Do you think the teams should be able to all do kind of whatever jersey every single night, kind of like how college football is done, where they just go, hey, we're just going to have alternates and do all that type of stuff? Or do you love the jerseys as is?
I like the jerseys as is. I love the City Edition uniforms. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change much about the NBA. I love the classic jerseys that they've all been repping. You know, I love throwing in a mix in there similar to the NFL doing throwback jerseys. You know, obviously have your Knights, Hispanic Heritage jerseys that they do. But, you know, I don't think the NBA jerseys, you know, are broken. I do. I like what they're doing there.
All right. Gotcha. Well,
before we go, I want to know, and again, I think we kind of know a little bit who's coming out of the East. I got Milwaukee coming out of the West. Give me the Lakers. But, you know, who is your pick to come out of both conferences, and who do you ultimately have in raising the trophy in 23?
I got Celtics coming out of the East.
Okay.
I really think that Drew Holiday pickup was really
huge.
It wasn't necessarily what they needed because they already had Marcus Smart, but I think that allowed them to get some more flexibility at the center position. And if Kristaps and Al Horford can just split 40 games apiece during the season, you're golden, honestly. Like, you don't have to rely on Rob Williams. That'd be huge. So I like the Celtics a lot there, adding a little more depth this offseason at the center and power forward position. And out of the West, it's really tough. I have a hard time not seeing the Lakers because I said Anthony Davis for MVP. That's a regular season award. So at the end of the day, I really like the Suns. I think the Suns are going to figure it out. I think that. Do
you think they got a deep enough roster? Again, in the playoffs, it doesn't really matter. You can stick to your three guys, but, you know, do they have a deep enough roster to go all the way?
I think this happened with the Nets, where only all three of those guys, KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, played like 15 games ever together. It just didn't work out. And I think we're going to see the Suns here with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Brad Beal play enough games together where we go, oh man, imagine if the Nets would be able to work it out with KD. Like, I do think we're going to be able to see, okay, if these guys all play 50 games together, I think that's the over-under line as far as how good they could be, because they'll just have the chemistry in the playoffs. They'll all be good to go, and it won't be who's got the ball last seconds, what's the situation look like, what's going to happen here. And then they also have Frank Vogel, who's a really good defensive coach. Like, that's the one thing that the Suns really need, is they need defense. And they don't have it from those three guys, but Frank Vogel, maybe he can help out a little bit on the roster at least and help get, you know, a little more depth out of some certain guys here that just, well, at least really need it right now, because this is a bad Suns roster if you take away those three guys. It's a really bad roster, but like they also just give me a little hope that they could do something.
And I always think when you put that type of big three together, and I'm not saying they're the Brooklyn Nets, but we just saw it come crashing down for Brooklyn. And again, I think those guys don't have the egos and the off-court issues that a Kyrie and James Harden have. KD's level-headed. He's a good guy. Brad Beal, good guy. Devin Booker, good guy. They're all there to win. So I think from that standpoint, it can work. But yeah, to your point, I think it's going to come down to health. You know, one of those guys, two of those guys get hurt, it's going to be tough. But yeah, I mean, absolutely those three, you know, if they can stay healthy, I see no reason why they shouldn't be top three in the West. Easy.
Yeah, I don't know who comes off the bench for them in the playoffs at point guard, because literally at point guard, the only guys on the roster are, and I'm going to really get some NBA heads here fired up, but if you don't know who these guys are, I don't blame you. Saban Lee on a two-way, used to be a former Piston. And then they also have a point guard, where is he? Jordan Goodwin. And that's it. And neither of those guys ring any bells with me whatsoever. Jordan Goodwin went to SLU, where Travis Ford's at, former Oklahoma State men's basketball head coach, a shout out there. But besides those two guys, you have no one playing point guard. I know what's going to happen. I can see it in my eyes right now that it's going to be 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's going to be Suns Lakers, and you're going to have Eric Gordon shooting a three from way too far outside. and the Suns are going to be up by 1, and that's going to be like the breaking point where LeBron goes, all right, well, if we can just force him to do that, we can take this however far we want to go in the game. We can come back and we can win. And that's what I'd worry about a lot with the Suns, is that who are you putting around these 3 guys when it all is at the end of the day? Because Nurkic at center, guarding Anthony Davis or LeBron, it's just not happening. It's just not. You're losing that. You're losing that battle. And also, if this Suns team, if this Suns team plays the Timberwolves at full health and full strength in a meaningful game, the Timberwolves could have a really good shot just saying, we're going to line up all 3 of our guys. We're going to have Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and Karl-Anthony Towns. Who are you going to guard? Like, they don't have the weapons to guard anyone at those spots. And this is all right after I said they have Frank Vogel, so that's why I think they'll actually do good and come out of the West. So, with all that being said, could be in my own words very quickly and very easily. But if I'm saying right before the start of the season, day before the season starts off and tips off tomorrow night, then you know what? I'm going to say that's what happens. I'm going to say, I'm going to say the Celtics win it all. Who do you got winning it all? Lakers or Bucks?
Give me the Lakers.
Okay.
Great God. Give me the Lakers, though.
All right. I don't know why not. So.
That's the deepest roster I've seen. It's almost so deep that you're going to piss people off with PT, but give me the Lakers.
Fair enough. All right, well, to end this one out here, I've got, as always, a very classic song for any NBA fan. Round Ball Rock, starting us out here as we go and end out this episode and the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. And if you're not already, shoot us a like over on TikTok or Instagram Reels. Would appreciate it, because that's all me. I'll know if you do it. So thanks so much, guys. Catch you again soon. And Tyler, what shout outs you got, if any?
Say it one more time.
What shout outs you got?
Oh, man. Shout out Tennessee Titans, RIP Kevin Byard, Philadelphia Eagle trade today. Eagles got a good one. Shout out to my family. Shout out to all my homies out in LA. Miss y'all. Cal, miss you, my brother. Shout out Titans new stadium. We're about to get this thing sold out ASAP.
Can't wait to see it. So it'll be beautiful. Hopefully the Chargers win next time they play there, but who knows what they'll end up doing. So as always, thanks so much, and catch you guys again soon. Peace.
Man, appreciate you, Cal.